Would you take a look at this article right here? It says a third of millionaires in the United States say that they're part of the middle class. A third. But if you do feel stuck and you're worried about money, don't worry, you're not alone. And it actually paints a pretty picture from this survey back in November of 2023, where they found that 60% of investors who had $1 million in actual invested cash categorized themselves as upper middle class, but then a third of that categorized themselves as just normal middle class. Now, here's somebody with $1 million in their investments. They have $1 million in cash. Most people don't have that. And they're saying that they are middle class right now. That just stresses, I think, everybody out. I mean, if you thought you were middle class and then you're hearing somebody with $1 million is now middle class, what does that make you? On top of that, household credit card debt is flying to an all-time high, surpassing $1 trillion. And at the same time, American savings rate is dropping, according to 2023 Fed data. And I think, yes, you could sit there and blame groceries. You can blame gas. You can blame all of the rising prices that we're dealing with in our everyday lives. But I think there's one that takes the crown jewel for all of these. In fact, this one is probably causing the issues. See, I think grocery prices and inflation and all these other things, that's just the symptom. The problem is our housing cost. Let's talk about the fact that house prices are just soaring through the roof. Let's talk about the fact that mortgage rates are very, very high that we haven't seen in years. And I think this is a housing crisis that won't be easy to manage. A lot of people like to say, well, if we lower rates, if the rates come down over this next year, mortgage rates are going to come down and then that'll be great. But I don't see that happening. If mortgage rates drop anytime soon, it's going to heat up the market again. And then guess what happens? House prices keep going up. So those people that just want to get a nice, modest, everyday home and enjoy their life, they're going to get screwed on either end of the spectrum. This is a serious deal. So take this example. You have a couple, and these two people, they want to move to another house because they got a new job, and that job is 60 minutes away. So instead of commuting 1 hour to work and 1 hour home every single day, they want to move a little bit closer. Their house that they're in right now, they purchased in the year 2020, 4 short years ago. And when they purchased this house, they got it for a total of $350,000 at a 2.5% interest rate. Beautiful. That's pretty amazing. They currently have $286,000 left on the mortgage, but the house is now valued at $550,000. Symptom of the times. So their overall payment, when you consider just principal and interest, is $1,185 a month. But if you factor in their tax and insurance, that goes up to $1,700 a month that they're currently paying for the home that they're in right now. So if they sell today and they're able to get all $550,000, they're able to sell it, they'll have to pay about $30,000 for their closing costs, and that'll give them about $520,000 left over. And then they got to pay off the remainder of their mortgage, which is $286,000, leaving them with $234,000 of profit. So what they could do, take that $234,000, take it to a house that's closer, hour away, and buy a new home. But as we just talked about, equity and house prices and everything is up compared to 2020. So let's say they want to have a similar home, maybe a slight upgrade. Similar home, but slight upgrade would probably be, let's say, $600,000. They're only going to increase by $50,000. So they find a home that's $600,000 today. They're going to have to pay an additional $20,000 for the typical closing cost, which brings them to $620,000. Now, they get to subtract down $234,000 because they're going to put that down payment down from the money that they got off of the old house. That means that their new mortgage is $386,000 at 6%. The payment every month is now $2,314 a month for principal and interest, or $2,897 if you factor in tax and insurance. But hold on a second. That's $1,197 more going from a house valued at $550,000 to a house at $600,000, just because of the economic times of the housing market. This is not only why people are feeling strained and stressed down, but why people are not moving, because they don't want to go to a similar house and pay $1,197 a month more. But even if you look at the interest over the 30-year loan on this new house, at the end of 30 years, they're going to pay a total of $447,000 in total interest compared to the old house, which would have only been $126,000 in interest. But here's the bigger issue. Let's say you make a nominal median household income of $88,000 a year. That means you make about $7,333 gross, or take-home pay of only $5,800 a month after taxes and all that. So you have $5,800 a month in take-home. Your house is going to now cost $2,897 a month. That's 49% of your take-home pay going to housing. 49%. That's half of your income. poof, gone. So think about this for a second. It's the year 2004, a short 20 years ago. The average household income back then was about $54,000, or about $3,844 a month in take-home pay. The average cost in 2004 was $195,000. I'll link all of my sources down in the description below if you want to follow along. But if you have a $195,000 house, average back in the year 2004, the mortgage interest surprisingly was high back then at 6%. But that means that your overall cost per month, if you factor in tax and insurance, principal and interest and all that, would only be $1,400 a month because the house did not cost as much as it does today. So back then, that's only 36% of your take-home pay going to housing cost. 36% to 49%, let's just call it 50%, is a big difference. And that's going to make a big difference in everybody's daily lives. Stacked on top of the fact of the symptoms, paying more for groceries, paying more for gas. That leaves people with little to no money to invest and enjoy their lives. And that's the issue. I can see why millionaires kind of feel stuck and why middle-class people are not going to move anytime soon. Because if you're sitting on a house with a low mortgage rate, especially if you only purchased it for $100,000, $200,000, or $300,000, you're not going to go out and buy another home for $650,000. It just doesn't make logical sense unless, of course, you got some major raise and you got this big job and you're making over the median. Maybe you're in the 75th or 95th or 99th percentile of income, in which case have at it. I guess that would be okay. Just make sure you don't get laid off anytime soon. Now, one could argue, well, if you have $1 million in invested cash, why don't you just pay off the house in full? Take that $600,000 out, pay it off in full. And yes, that might be a great way, and that's a good alternative strategy to use. The trick would be, and this is a highly debatable subject, and we debated it here on this channel before, is does it make sense to pull out $600,000 out of the stock market to pay off a house? Or do you just kind of say, man, if I do that, I lose the growth, the future potential of that 600,000 years from now. That's the risk that you got to make. Because what if the stock market grows at 10, 12, or more percent? Even its average at 7%. You're taking out that just to pay off a mortgage. Yeah, that could be tough. That could be a difficult decision to make. So the other question would be, well, if you bought your house at a good time, why don't you just stay in that and take that painful 1-hour journey to work and 1-hour journey back? Yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. I know some of you who do that. That's painful for me. I would never want to do that. But yeah, that could be an alternative. And I could see a lot of people actually doing that because they don't want to move closer to work because they cannot afford to. It just doesn't make logical sense. Even if you could afford it and say, you know what, we'll scrape and do that 50% of our take-home pay going to the mortgage and just scrape by, that's just annoying. That's painful. That's just not fun. Where's the fun in all this? What are your thoughts on the housing market? Drop me a comment down below. But if you want to pause for a second and say, you know what, there's got to be a way out. And I think that way out is really focusing on financial independence. It is a sacrifice, but having that control is the real deal. And to learn more about how you can become financially independent, check out this video next, and we'll see you on the next video.